Hey, my friends, it's that time of the year, spring cleaning or decluttering. And what is the clutter trying to tell us? Sometimes we think we don't clean things up or we don't get into spring cleaning because we know it's going to take a ton of time. And yes, there's something behind that. But did you know there's also science behind it? There's science of knowing of the subconscious that, wait, the reason it got this way has an answer in the subconscious. And sometimes the subconscious just does not want to go there. So today we're not only going to address how you spring clean and where to start, we're also going to learn how to approach spring cleaning by learning some of the things we need to be aware of, because the journey of spring cleaning can be life altering, life changing. Yes, you'll clean up some things. No, you don't have to do it all at once, but when you go into it empowered with scientific, emotional information, you're going to look at this in a very different way. Oh, my friends, you are about to go on a journey that could change your life. What? This is just spring cleaning, right? Oh, it's so much more, my friend. It is so much more. A number of years ago, we remodeled our home, and it should have been like a 10-month project. But then we soon found that we were going to have to move out and gathered everything up, put things in boxes, put them in storage units. 2.5-year project. And when we finally moved back in, we'd been in this brand new, beautiful home 9 months when my husband told us that he was leaving us and moving to California. So here we have this newly expanded home, 2 storage units, 2 garages, just full to the gill, honestly, with so much stuff. And the boxes weren't really organized because when we found out it was going to be a gut job, we just had to hurry and get things out of the way. And here he was with this new amazing home, but I hadn't moved things back in. But I got a knock from the universe one day, and the universe was sending me on a journey, giving me 3 months from Halloween to January 31st to have everything organized, sorted, placed, everything in its place, every drawer perfect. And yes, the universe does give us challenges. And you know what? I accepted. But I accepted not knowing where to start and not aware of what I was about to step into. I knew I had my work cut out for me, but I had no idea what I was going to learn on that journey. So I kind of said goodbye to everyone for 3 months, other than my kids. I'd get them out the door for school. When they came home, I was mom. But the minute they were gone, I was on it. I was working nonstop. Now, how many times do we actually have 3 months to be able to work on something? Well, that was a portion of my life when that was afforded, and I wanted to step up to the challenge. But I'll be honest, it was slow, tedious work, and I really didn't have a methodology and didn't really know what I was doing. Then I heard about this organizing class, and I was like, yay, this is perfect timing. This is going to help me. I thought like organizing was just about systems and cute bins and good labels and the matching containers and a junk drawer that finally looked so amazing. And so I was excited to go to this workshop. I thought I was going to leave with a shopping list and this labeling strategy. But instead, the woman teaching said something that completely threw me. She basically started not talking about junk drawers or labels. She said, where do you have all your boxes stored? You know, everything that you packed away that you haven't looked at for years and years. Now go there in your mind while you're listening to this. What's in those boxes? And then she asked, where in your life have things been stored away too long? I'm thinking, what is she asking? And then she says, what are you keeping that needs a second chance? And then her next question was, what do you hold on to that is not actually serving a purpose? And I kind of got that, but I remember leaving that workshop so confused, like, wait, we're not even addressing all the drawers and things I have, but we're going right to the storage unit where all these things have been packed away for years. But I have to tell you, later, the ideas of what she was teaching hit me in a big way. Because after the major remodel, I was living in an aftermath of too much stuff. Those 2 large garages, the storage units, the overflow, things tucked away, stacked away, postponed, delayed, ignored. And that goal of January 31st was going to be just around the corners. So I hired a neighbor boy to help. We brought in a dumpster and we started with boxes that had been packed away. What I thought was going to be a cleaning project, oh boy, turned into something completely different. It became an excavation because little by little, I realized my clutter wasn't random. It was telling the truth. Now, at the same time, I remember watching an episode of Hoarders. Do you remember seeing that miniseries? And one moment especially struck me. There was this woman who had this little toy horse, but then they showed that she didn't just have the one horse, she had like hundreds of horses. And in my mind, immediately I went, oh, I get why she has that. There's something special about that horse. And for some reason, by purchasing these others, she's trying to remember that. Now, easy for me to look at somebody else and analyze why she had that. And in fact, during it, the story unfolded that this horse had come from a boyfriend of hers that she dearly loved. And then they broke up. And this is all she had left of that relationship. So to continue having those sweet memories, she continued to buy horse after horse after horse. So interesting, the psychology behind what we have, why we acquire, and what we keep. And that really hit me because I started looking at my own things really differently, not with shame, but I started looking at it with curiosity. Like, whoa, why do I have so many things of this? What is this doing for me emotionally? And what season of my life is this connected to? And I started having one aha after another. For example, I had an unbelievable amount of papers, of notebooks, and pens. I mean, a ridiculous amount. Every time I went to the store, I found myself in the stationery aisle looking at notebooks and pads of paper and more pens and journals. And I just had to have them. So when I sat with that and really thought about it, I realized there was something symbolic in that for me. There had been so much that I had wanted to say in life that had never felt free to say. So there were so many words that had just sat inside of me. And all those notebooks and pens felt like this physical representation of unspoken expression. And then there was baby clothes, tons of baby clothes. I'd saved so many things in my mind thinking, oh, my kids will think this will so cute to have all their little outfits from when they were little. And yes, there's the normal nostalgia, but as I really examined it, I realized it wasn't just sentimentality. It was a grief for a simpler season in my life. When they were little, life felt sweeter in some ways. It was like more manageable. And now as they grew into their teen years, it was more complex, more emotionally layered, more uncertain. Part of me, I was just holding on to their clothes because it represented a time that I truly missed. And then there were the freezers. At one point, my freezers were so jammed with food that we couldn't consume it fast enough. But when my husband had told us that he was leaving, underneath there was that panic of, oh my gosh, how are we going to survive? Will we be okay? What if there's not enough? So those stuffed freezers were not just stuffed freezers, they were the physical manifestation of scarcity and fear. So I give these examples so that as you're thinking, wow, let me get curious about what I have and not judgmental about what you have. Really, this is like Nancy Drew or Sherlock Holmes. It's a mystery. And as we unfold and get curious about these things, we can really meditate on these things and start to understand and unravel why we collect and do what we do. Now, is everything like this? No, there's times when we're just busy in our life and things get messy, but there's a lot of times when there is a message for us. And this is when I started to realize that sometimes what looks like clutter or collections is actually frozen emotion. Sometimes a pile is not just a pile. Now, I want to be careful here because I'm not saying that every messy room is a deep psychological crisis. Sometimes people are just busy. Sometimes they're tired. Sometimes life is just full. But I am saying our environments can reflect our inner world more than we realize. And science actually gives us really interesting window into why clutter can affect us so much. Research at Princeton has showed that a lot of visual clutter, that competing stimuli makes our brains work harder. So, in other words, your brain has to work harder to filter out what matters from what doesn't matter. So, visual clutter is not neutral, it's competing for our attention. And it means that when your desk, your room, your closet, or your surroundings are overloaded, part of your mental energy is being spent just managing the noise of that visual field. And another study showed women who described their homes as cluttered or unfinished or more stressful had less healthy cortisol patterns or stress patterns and were in a worse mood. Now, that doesn't mean that clutter is the only reason people get stressed, but it does show that the way a home feels matters more than we think. But what I've been portraying to you, there is an emotional healing that can happen when we can recognize our patterns of why we are keeping certain things. So if you've ever thought you can't think straight in a chaotic room, or you keep procrastinating in a space that feels heavy, or you feel low grade stress every time you look at a certain corner of your house, that is not you being dramatic. Your brain and your body is responding to the environment. And honestly, I think a lot of us already know that intuitively. Some people use the phrase stuck energy. Some people talk about mental clutter. Some people talk about emotional residue. Science may use different words, but the basic idea overlaps. What surrounds us affects us. And that's why I think spring cleaning can be so much more than just a seasonal chore. It can be this reset. Now, go back to my 3-month goal. Did I make it? Did I hit my goal? Well, the process was slow, even with a sidekick, this neighbor kid, and running to the dumpster. And then finally, with cords and old electronics and all the decisions I had to make, I realized, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever. So I had to stop for a minute and go, okay, how can I make decisions faster? And I finally decided, okay, if I'm not using it right now and it's usable in good shape, I'm just going to donate it. I'm going to give it a chance to have a purpose. Done. Easy. Then I decided, okay, this is how crazy I got. If there's an earthquake, which by the way, I'm surrounded by 2 earthquake faults, so the possibility is there. What would I be grateful I kept and would be willing to pick up in the aftermath? I know that sounds crazy, but oh boy, I started releasing a ton of things. So, what would that be like for you? What would be that standard you were set if you have so much that you have to release that you'd finally say, okay, if it doesn't hit this criteria, then it's out of here? Now, there's a beauty in processing things, but there came a time when I thought, I am sprinting now to make it to this goal. All right, did I make my goal? Well, the evening of January 31st, it was 11 p.m. at night. I had the last 6 bins to go through. And the next day, I was teaching a class that I had not even prepared. So I said to the universe, okay, you know how hard I've worked. Everything else I have processed. I've gone through the emotions. Every drawer is in order. Everything is in its place. This has been the most incredible journey. But the 6 bins I have in front of me, dun, 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 they're junior high and high school. Do you want me to power through these in 1 hour just to say, I'm going through the tape. I made it. Or do you want me to prepare that class and then spend time processing 6 bins that I know are going to have a lot of emotion, a lot of memories, and a lot of reasons to be grateful, but some painful ones too. And I felt like the universe gave me a good choice. Wait on those 6 bins, process those out, giving yourself the time that you need. And I did. I gave myself a month break before I tackled what is a highly emotional part of our growing up, right? But more importantly, I cannot tell you how my home felt. There was a lightness, there was a brightness that I can't even describe in words. It was the most incredible journey that I'd ever gone through. And there were a lot more things I learned from every single area I was cleaning up and sorting. Okay, now your journey may look different from mine, but I'm excited for you if you go on this type of journey empowered with these insights and knowing that your subconscious is going to be, oh, wait a minute. I'm a little bit resistant about us getting into what I have stored away and I've packed away. And I don't even really want us to have to revisit that. but how glorious to recognize the patterns, to be able to process the emotions. And there's a victory over our environment. When we can create order in an environment, it creates order in our nervous system, in our mind, and in our subconscious. Now, maybe your version of spring cleaning isn't 3 months, 2 garages, storage units. Maybe your version is that chair with clothes all over it, or that desk that you can't work at, or that backpack that's full of old papers, or that shelf of random products, or that drawer you avoid opening, or that box you've moved 3 times and still haven't opened. The question is not just, should I clean this? The deeper question is, what story is this telling, and is that story still true? Maybe it's telling the story of who you were. Maybe it's telling the story of what you lost. Maybe it's telling the story of what you are afraid of. Maybe it's telling the story of what you never got to say. Maybe it's telling the story of a dream you still want to live. Once you know that, you can choose differently. That's why I do not want this conversation to become one more overwhelming message telling you to clean your whole life in a weekend. No, that's not the point. The point is to get unstuck. The point is to start listening differently. So here's what I would say. Do not begin with the whole house. Begin with one drawer, one shelf, one corner, one box, one category. And as you pick things up, do not ask, do I keep this or toss it out? Ask, what does this represent? What season did this come from? Do I still need it? Am I keeping this from love, fear, guilt, fantasy, or purpose? If I were fully honest, would this still belong in my life? And if the answer is no, let the things go with gratitude. Sometimes it's just clearing visual noise so that your brain can breathe a little easier. And sometimes it's about lowering the friction so that daily life can work easier. Sometimes it's about releasing fear, and sometimes it's about blessing someone else with something you no longer need. And sometimes it's about making your room, your home, and your space reflect the life you're building now instead of the life you're still grieving. Your home should not just store your history. It should support your future. And sometimes the first step towards that future is as small as opening one box and deciding what has been stored away way too long and giving it a second chance, either in your life or somebody else's. So if this is your season to clean and organize and simplify or reset, don't ask yourself, how do I make this look better? But ask yourself, what is this trying to tell me? Because your clutter may not just be clutter. It may be a message. And once you hear it, you can finally decide what stays, what goes, and what gets set free. My friends, I hope anything I have said can help you step into the beauty and the power in spring cleaning in a different way. Again, it might be a tiny microcosm you're working with, or it might be an entire house. But if we will even schedule every single week, a half hour, 3 months from now, imagine the insights you'll have. Oh, I'm excited for you to go on this journey, my friends, because we are creators and we have created the environment around us. Happy spring cleaning, everyone. See you next week. Tally ho.